Hello, everybody. This is Carol Maletta. Welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. Hello and welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast. I'm Carol Maletta, your host. Today, we are joined by Jeff Nelligan, who is the author of 4 Lessons from My 3 Sons, How You Can Raise Resilient Kids. And those of you who follow me know that that's a topic that I love. Yeah. Jeff is a father of 3 and a respected voice in American parenting. And he's made waves with his approach to raising children who are resilient, well-rounded, and successful. So with a background spanning public affairs in Washington, D.C., congressional roles, and military service, he brings a unique perspective to parenting. His work has not only topped Amazon's parenting bestsellers list, but also has been featured in leading parenting outlets and on national public radio. In our conversation today, we're going to dive into the strategies and experiences and sayings that shaped his journey as a parent and explore how traditional values mesh with modern parenting challenges. That's important because this is a whole new world that folks are parenting in today, especially starting with young children. So whether you're a parent seeking guidance or just interested in different parenting philosophies, this episode is really for you. So Jeff, it is really a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for joining me.
Carol, thank you for having me, and, great work with the 411. I like the way you put it. Traditional values in a modern world. That's a tough balance to achieve.
It really is. And I definitely found myself in that space, where I felt like I was just not comfortable with the going conversation or commentary about what parents were doing and what we should be doing. And we'll probably get into that a little bit. But why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and how life brought you to this parent author space? Because I don't know. I don't know if when you were 22, graduated from college, you thought you were going to be doing this. So why don't you tell us?
Really? Well, when I was 22, graduating from college, no idea. I was very fortunate to grow up in Los Angeles. Wonderful parents, wonderful home, 2 siblings, a brother and a sister, and came east for college. Got involved in politics, my lifelong love, starting with my mom, who was a political operative. And along the way of being in politics on Capitol Hill, as you noted, and with some administrations, along came 3 sons. Right at that, I think I would say that inflection point between the traditional values, modern age divide. They're all born in the late 1990s. So they're at that tail end of the youngest millennials and the oldest of the Gen Z.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, my sons were born, 99.
Yeah.
1999. So I can definitely relate to what you're talking about there. So, your book emphasizes resilience in children. And so can you share with us your core principles, of your parenting philosophy and how you applied those in raising your sons?
Certainly. And I started when they were young boys, 5 years old, and I hold to it now. Carol, maybe this is a little bit out there. Our job as parents, I believe, is not to build a relationship with our child. We already have that. Our job is to teach our kids to build a relationship with the whole wide world that is out there, the individuals, the events, the years, and because that's where they're going to spend the bulk of their time.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because, and we probably don't disagree when I tell you what I'm thinking, because when you first said that, because I always talk about how relationship is first. Like you can't teach anybody anything if they don't feel like you're connected to them. And that,
Right.
That's how I feel about with children. And I look at it as a three-legged stool based on parenting readings from when my children were really younger. But the legs of that stool are affection, protection, and correction.
Oh, yeah.
And so you can't do any of those other things if the other two legs are not in place. And so I feel like connection or relationship is the beginning of instruction. And so can you tell me then, because I don't think, having read your book, that you disagree with what I just said, but
not at all.
But then tell us what you mean then about relationship, and that's not the focus.
I guess the three-legged stool that you speak of is exactly the way my sons were raised. Mm-hmm. I just assume that if you're a parent of a kid, you already have a relationship with that kid, mm-hmm. and that kid has that affection and that connection. But I think there's too much in this modern age, as we delineate.
Oh, I know where you're going. You're talking just buddies and friends and wanting to like you all the time.
Right. I don't want my kids as a friend.
Got it.
I want my, when they were young, and maybe when yours were young, I don't need friends. I am the parent, and he or she is the child. And that's not the relationship you want with your child.
There you go.
You're the parent, you're in charge. And the idea of negotiating, beginning early on about things, that shouldn't enter the picture. You've got to make that kid, in this tough, competitive, kind of sometimes broken world, mm-hmm. you've got to make that kid strong enough to stand up with confidence and with satisfaction. And so that's what I meant by the relationship with that world.
Got you. Yes. And I couldn't agree with you more. Because for those parents that don't like to hear us say that it's not our job to be their friends, let me say that if you still are holding that ideal in your mind that you want to be your child's friend, the best thing you could do as a friend to your child is prepare them.
Right.
Because as a matter of fact, you're not being a good friend if you don't prepare them for the situations that are going to come, the disappointments, the moments of truth when they're going to have to stand up and speak, speak on what they see, take a stand, or even something as simple as preparing them for how to, good table manners, how to conduct themselves in the restaurant, and then how that builds on how they may have to have a dinner or an event where they're being evaluated for a scholarship, or when they're being evaluated for a job interview or whatever.
Right.
The friendliest thing you could do is build that foundation while they're younger. So I agree with you on that. And I definitely had some moms that didn't agree with me when I said, I'm not their friends. I mean, I can do friendly things with them and for them, and things that I'm doing to prepare them for life, I feel are pretty friendly, but we are not buds.
Yeah. It's that exactly. And you asked about the way that the resilience factor came in. So along with that kind of worldview I had, I'm gonna build you to take on the world. Were just 4 traits of values. We'll go back to your traditional value statement. And the first one, you just enunciated: personal conduct, mm-hmm. basic courtesy, basic decency, mm-hmm. showing up on time, wearing the right clothes, having a civil tongue in your head, being able to mix with people you don't even know, just like you say, your dinner table analogy. The second one is just develop their confidence. Mm-hmm. And you develop their confidence by putting them in situations where they have to learn, where they're not enabled, mm-hmm. where they have to learn. The third one is, the resilience in adversity. That is, mm-hmm. every kid is going to hit a wall. Every adult hits a wall. No one gets a free ride. Mm-hmm. And the sooner a kid can deal with an adverse circumstance, mm-hmm. and either get over it or around it, the better. And the fourth one is just inspiring that ambition in children. Mm-hmm. They need to go farther. In my case, and people reading the book, 4 Lessons from My 3 Sons, they'll see I take a lot of shots at myself. I say in the final chapter, all of you need to get farther than I got.
Right.
All of you. And I got pretty far. That's not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the traditional values that I try to inculcate it throughout their, childhood and adolescence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's really simple, like 4 ideas.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, I like that. Now, raising children, because we have we'll probably talk a little bit more about what your sons have achieved and all of that. But when you're raising children to achieve high academic success, athletic standards, and being well-rounded, socially and all of that, it can be challenging to get all that done. And so, can you share some of the challenges, the most significant challenges you faced as a parent, and how you and your sons overcame them together? And I want to point out to our listeners, a lot of this is from the father's perspective. Jeff wrote the
Right.
book and all of that, but I have seen where you have written that your children obviously owe a great debt of gratitude for how they've turned out to their mother as well.
90%.
Sure. 90%.
No joke. 90%.
Okay, so go ahead and tell us about some of the challenges that you face as a parent trying to help them excel in those areas.
Sure. Carol, I'll tell you, maybe you hear this from parents too. I know I do. Is though many parents will talk to me, and not that I'm some great counselor, but just shooting the breeze at work or in the community or the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
They'll say, my kid is really smart, but they don't put in the effort.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I hear this all the time. And the first thing I say is, well, this is the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. It's not Toledo, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of competitive, smart, sharp people in these zip codes.
Right.
But I always think that, follow through is the absolute key. And I will say to a lot of them, don't tell me how smart the kid is. Can they follow through on a basic task?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that means, like you brought up in your question, the athletic portion or the academic portion. Can they just follow through? Smart doesn't mean anything without effort.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in those situations. My middle son wasn't putting in the effort in 11th grade in the first semester. And, maybe this is a heck of an example, but after a couple discussions, I said, okay, if you don't improve the grades, you're not going to wrestle or play lacrosse in the winter and spring because I won't sign the release forms.
Mm-hmm.
And you lay it out stark. Your choices have consequences. And I always say that to kids, your choice, or even adults, if you don't improve, and I know you can't because you had these grades before, and they don't have to be A pluses.
Right.
We're not talking about, not every kid is going to be a genius.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you don't improve, you don't play. And it's as simple as that. Well, of course, everything improved. But that's the kind of, maybe it sounds infantile, but that's the way I approach it as a parent. He wants something, I'm going to take it away unless he does what is necessary for him to do.
Right. And it's a privilege to be able to do those things.
Right.
And also, it takes time to do well. So you have to, make sure that you're doing the other things that you're responsible for so that you can do the things you want to do. It's kind of a saying that I like from the movie Great Debaters with Denzel Washington. And the father and the instructor always said, do what you have to do so you can do what you want to do.
Right. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's the idea of negotiation we talked about earlier. I didn't negotiate.
Mm-hmm.
It's my way, or this is what's going to happen. And the reason is, Carol, I'm the parent. They're the 16-year-old kid. This authority structure is very clear.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's kind of how I wrestled with it in the past. In terms of certain things, I think parents really have to be so engaged with their kids that they know what the kid is good at.
Right.
He or she is good at and likes doing, and those they don't. when my kids were young, they were encouraged to take music lessons and learn the trumpet and the trombone. And of course, they were diligent. They went ahead and did it and started doing the lessons. And I kind of knew something about the music business because my dad was a professional musician in Los Angeles.
Right.
And I said, I saw, there they were practicing day after day alone in rooms. And I kind of needled them and I said, this is not going anywhere.
Uh-huh.
And about a month after that, they quit. And all the parents said, well, why did you get them to quit playing musical instruments? I said, because it's a lost leader. They'll have to practice for years alone, isolated, to get good at this. And my dad was a musician, and I know that it's a very tough road. So you shed those things that they're not really going to be, excited about. And of course, the converse is they're very good at lacrosse even when they were young kids. Yeah, sports. And in sports, like in the theater, like in the marching band, like in the robotics club, you're around people who share that same goal. You have to have that personal discipline to get better. And there's going to be adversity that you have to get over.
Yeah.
All of those things.
And the passion too, because I wonder now if one of them had been a real prodigy, just been really good, like the sounds that were coming out of those rooms were they were just breathtaking. I assume, I don't know, you can tell me, you would have let them pursue it.
Yes.
If they had the passion, were willing to practice, and were good at it, I assume that would have been okay.
Right. And that's why right. But you come back to the parent, and you deal with this in your practice, I imagine, a lot. Mm-hmm. The parent has to know what the kid is really excited about, right, and what the kid is ambivalent about.
Yeah, because it was funny reading reading the book. It was kind of like, if someone didn't know you or really hadn't completed the book and really had perspective to think, oh, you were like, oh my gosh, the noise coming out of there. No way, you're done. Yeah. You got to quit. When really it wasn't that. It was all of those things, like they weren't that interested.
Right.
The talent, the natural talent wasn't quite there, and they didn't quite have the passion to get there.
Yes.
So let's cut bait and move on.
Exactly. There are plenty more endeavors that kids can do in this day and age than sit alone in a room practicing scales.
And especially if that's not what they truly want to do.
Right.
Yes. I believe no child should have to be what they don't want to be, especially if they really willing to work for what they do want to be.
Right.
We'll be right back after this. If you're looking to reach a massive audience of parents and caregivers, then look no further than ProPix by the Parenting 411, the ultimate marketing program designed to skyrocket your brand to new heights. With ProPix, we've created 3 incredible packages to suit your marketing needs and budget. So let's take a look. First up is our social starter package. You'll receive a stunning graphic promo piece, plus we'll also feature your brand on the Parenting 411 Instagram page. It's the perfect way to make a memorable first impression and get parents buzzing about your business. Now, if you're ready to level up, our Parenting Pro package is where it's at. You'll enjoy all the benefits of the Social Starter package, plus more awesome benefits, including exposure on the Parenting 411 podcast, which reaches parents in more than 22 countries each week. But wait, there's more. For those seeking the pinnacle of marketing power, our Elite Exposure package is the way to go. You'll get even more exposure across our platform, including thousands of followers and connections on LinkedIn. Get ready to dominate the airwaves and establish yourself as the go-to resource for families everywhere. Take advantage of ProPix by the Parenting 411 today and unlock unparalleled marketing opportunities for your business. But I should tell you that prices are set to increase on November 1st, so act now. ProPix by the Parenting 411 is your passport to the hearts and minds of parents. Visit ProPix by P411.com. Join us today and watch the magic happen. And we're back with the Parenting 411. So now I know I've touched on it a little bit, but I know you seem to be aware that some readers might perceive your approach to be really rigorous and tough. So, how do you respond? I don't know if this comes up in any of your speaking engagements or if you receive reviews or emails from people who have read your book, but how do you respond and how have you reflected on that and evolved your parenting style over the years?
You're so diplomatic. I love that, Carol. This rigorous, tough way that you acted as a parent. I kind of go back to a term that I wish I could take credit for. It's called encourage and empower. It's your term. And reading it several months ago, at first on your website, I mean, that's really what I was after. And maybe my encouragement and empowerment had a little bit of a rough edge to it. So, but I'll tell you, Carol, come on, this is a tough competitive age. And it's the parents in this area, the parents anywhere know it's tough and competitive. And I don't think there's any reason to sugarcoat the reality of the world. Kids respect the candid parent. And the only way my belief is the only way to bring this home to kids is when you're out in the real world. And that means the malls, the athletic fields, schools, neighborhoods, communities, the hardware store, and to see the real world up close and judge it. The good, the bad, and the inspirational. And people might say, well, judging is bad. Your audience right now is judging me. And they're judging you.
Sure.
So the idea that judgment or the judgment-free zones is a fantasy. So when we were out in the real world, the old man here brought it in hard and fast. That parent opening the door for a senior or engaging in a shy parent in conversation is doing the right thing. That kid who has his parents holding all his gear after a game is
my gosh, when you said that,
oh my goodness,
I could totally relate to that. Yes, because I would kind of feel, well, finish your thought and then I'll say.
But see, I've already hit a nerve. And then the inspirational, the things that you see that are really good, but there, as I said earlier, it's a broken, fallen world in many ways, and your kids have got to know what's right and what's wrong, and the only way they're going to know is when it comes from your mouth to their ears.
Your mouth to their ears, and also your example, like what you were just talking about, how you engage with other people and all of that. Because I remember even when I was younger, and I would be out with my mother in the Washington, D.C. area. That's where I grew up, and my parents were both from the South. So they were very warm and, conversations with people. And I would be like, why are you talking to strangers? I mean, when I was younger, why are you talking to these people? And now, as time went on, I found myself doing it and helping people, like you said, seniors. There was one senior that didn't know how to use her. She was struggling with the ATM. And so I was helping her, and I was with my mom actually, and I was helping this lady, and of course she needed to enter her PIN number and all of that. So I stood back, turned my head so she could do all of that. And my mother commented on that, like I really admire the way you helped her and, made her feel safe and comfortable, because it's your money, it's her money that she was worried about. Yeah. And I was like, well, listen, I think you rubbed off on me. I mean, your warmth and your willingness to help people. And I've seen that with my children as well. And they thought that as well when they were younger, like, why are you talking to them? And why are you having that conversation with them? You don't know them. but now they are able to do it as well, and they're kind to other people, and they try to be helpful, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's that generational gift you got from your mom and gave to your kids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, couldn't put it better.
Yeah, and and also when you were talking about when the kids are leaving the game or leaving practice and the parents are carrying all of the gear, uh, it's I get it. You want to help your children out, and maybe after a particularly rough situation, maybe there was an injury or just whatever. I get it, but I agree with that too. You've got to carry your load. And what's similar to what you were talking about is when we would come from school, when I'd pick my children up from school, that one didn't go to public school until later, and later on, but I didn't carry their backpack. I didn't come out of school carrying their backpack.
Yeah.
And it's a simple thing, but I just felt like they needed to do that. Whereas I saw other parents, their arms full, carrying, and it was just, I don't know. It was a small thing, but I just felt like they needed to carry their own backpacks. And then even I'll tell you something else that I thought was interesting, and I don't know how you feel about this, but also, like I said, one child was started public school in middle school. And so you had to meet them at the bus stop. And I was like, wow, really? I just thought that was kind of odd. And I note that, and in even the latter grades of elementary school, I saw parents out there, and it was required. Somebody needed to meet them at the bus stop. And first of all, the way the bus stops are set up, they're designed to not be far from your home to begin with, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so I kind of couldn't understand that. But I mean, I complied with it, but I was like, I just thought that was really, really kind of me stepping on their independence a little bit.
Right. And I mean, Lenore Skenazy writes the Let Grow and Free Range sites.
Yes.
And she talks about that independence, just what you've said.
Mm-hmm.
The kid gets off the bus, let the kid find their way home. Like you say, all the parents carrying the backpacks. That's enabling a kid at what, 5 years old?
Yeah, I mean,
you carry the load. You just said it. You carry the load.
You can have a conversation with them about their day and all of that. I mean, it's not hard labor. It's their backpack, and they were already carrying it. And I think that just is part of the school experience. They're already excited. You mentioned 5-year-olds. They're already excited and proud that they're going to real school anyway.
Yeah.
So, let them carry it. I don't know. I mean, maybe help them carry the science. I mean, if their arms are full because they've got the science project, they've got this and that. I mean, maybe you can do the friendly thing and help once in a while, but I don't know. That was kind of a little thing to me too.
And it's a great example of what I was trying to do with my sons is you see these examples throughout everyday life.
Right.
And if you judge them and say, that's not right, you need to do it this way. The kids, it becomes a reflex in their mind that they're not going to do this. And I will tell you, my sons, all three, through all their games in high school and in college, always carried their stuff. Now it sounds like, oh, that's not such a big deal, but it was bigger than them carrying bags. It was their whole approach to, I'm independent, I'm in charge of this, and that responsibility is mine alone. And it blossoms into virtually every aspect of their life.
Yeah, and there's so many components to that because they've got to organize how they pack the bag, how they carry the bag, to make it work. There's a lot that goes into that process, and I think that it's a very important skill to learn. I'm glad that I did growing up.
And another example too, you talk about schools and everything, is the Nelligan family had this mantra: if you're 5 minutes early, you're late.
Right. I
had learned that from an old African-American drill sergeant that I had in infantry training at Fort Benning, Georgia, in the Wayback Machine.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a commanding presence and man in my life at the time and still remains so. And it was just a great saying of his. He would tell the whole damn company, if you're 5 minutes early, you're late, meaning you've got to be there before on time.
Mm-hmm.
And it became a mantra with my sons and me. And of course, when we saw people coming into something late, my kids would say it out loud. And if you're late, damn it, you're wrong. But that idea, like carrying the bag, and that was Drill Sergeant Harrison's other favorite phrase. But the idea is it just builds that reflex from carrying your own stuff to being on time, to following through on tasks, to wearing presentable, modest clothes.
Mm-hmm.
All this sets a pattern for the rest of their lives. And
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, I was around my kids about 5 days ago. The first time all five of them had been together all three of them had been together in 5 years because of military deployments.
Oh, okay.
And they were the same that they were when they were 5 years old in terms of behavior and attitudes,
Mm-hmm.
just their presence in the room.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of your three sons, I can imagine they have different personalities, and slightly different interests. They've done a lot of the same things, but they're not the same kids. So I wonder how you adapt your your parenting style to really suit their unique personalities and temperaments and their needs.
Sure. Carol, you're a parent. I'm a parent. Everyone who's listening is a parent. We know that with multiple kids, you get multiple types.
Mm-hmm.
No kid is exactly like their brother or their sister.
Mm-hmm.
And one of obviously you kind of learn that early on. It's intuitive to a parent. One of the things I like about your site and everything, because it seemed to validate a lot of what I did. And as I said, you put it in much better prose than I could. You mentioned hang time.
Oh, yeah.
And I had, you know, I had that with my sons because I made a point of every month I would at least meet once or twice with one of them individually.
Mm-hmm.
No other kids around,
Mm-hmm.
no distractions, no screens, obviously. They didn't get phones until they were end of 11th grade, but a place that was just the epitome of peace. And for that, it was the bleachers down at our high school on a Saturday morning at about 8 o'clock.
Uh-huh.
And because, as we know as parents, kids are all different, this was a way to sit down with them for an hour and just shoot the breeze about anything, and then kind of discover more about them and what was important to them at school and with their peers and the kind of things that they saw around them wherever they were. And that hang time gave me really a good viewpoint that I never would have got if I hadn't made that period of time a routine in each one of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I kind of, got to navigate how they were different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, you talk a bit about how technology has really kind of intruded upon our lives. And, so let's talk about, the advice you could give for parents who really want to instill traditional values, like courtesy and loyalty in their children, which, sometimes with technology, kids can kind of take shortcuts with that. But before you do that, I want to know how in the world you were able to get your sons to 11th grade before they had phones.
Oh, I guess we go back to that awful question about me having a tough, rigorous kind of parenting style.
I mean, you mean they did not have cell phones until they were in 11th grade? Like even
end of 11th grade.
The last one who sounds like it's about the age of my sons.
All three of them didn't have it till the end of 11th grade.
Wow.
And because I talked about it earlier. I wasn't going to let the culture raise my kids.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Our family was going to raise the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to the whole negotiation thing.
Mm-hmm.
Early on, I kind of saw when they were very young, I saw that the addiction, for example, if we put on a VH, a CD,
Mhm.
VHS CD of, exactly. When we put on CDs of, let's say, kids programs
Right.
once a week on a Saturday, uh, after an hour, they would be transfixed by it. And then the next day, Sunday, they're saying, when can we watch another one? This happened after a couple months. And I said, my gosh, no, you can't. But you could see this addiction to the screen and the passive relationship they had and wanting more,
Mm.
you know, like increase the dose.
Mm-hmm.
And so we put an end to that immediately. So they never had, from their childhood on, very much exposure to screens at all.
You
Uh,
mean not even television?
no television. We didn't have one.
Oh, wow.
We
Okay.
had one that we would bring out of the basement to watch a big athletic event or some big pageantry about the nation, or like once a month, we'd
Mm-hmm.
watch a Disney film on a CD, the Apple Dumpling Gang. Or,
Well, I can't I can't wait to share this with this episode with my sons because they think I know they thought we were really outdated or as well. We didn't have cable until they were 9.
wow.
And even there, it was still TV time was still kind of managed in terms of how much they got to watch. For a few years they didn't get TV during the week. They didn't have
Yeah.
they didn't have that at all. And then the phones, our children got their phones earlier, but it was because, I mean, they're twins, as my
Uh-huh.
audience knows, but they had always been at the same school, been in the same places. So,
Yeah. Right.
but then they split up and one was going out of state, so to speak, even though everything
Mhm.
was together and
Yeah.
be. And so on a bus. So we were kind of like, well, I want to sort of be able to have a way to know where
Sure.
we are. So it was really need based because they wanted a phone much sooner. This was, got them in middle school. They wanted them much sooner, but we had it more as it was always, you don't need it. You don't need it. And so then there became
Right.
a need, so they got it. So they didn't get it so that they didn't get it so they could play games.
Right.
They could do the fun stuff.
Yeah.
It was a functional thing. And I call it a dumb phone. It was not it was not the one with all the bells and whistles. But I just found that fascinating that you said that they didn't get it until the end of 11th grade, and they were definitely the exception. I mean, I occasionally, when a paper, like the Washington Post, will do an article that kind of talks about where kids are with technology today, and there are still a few, very very few teens that say, like, they don't do social media, for example,
Right.
but it's very rare. So I mean, even though your children are a little older like mine are,
Yeah.
um it's still fascinating that you were able to do that.
Well, again, we go back to, I'm the parent.
Hmm.
By the time you're in 11th grade, I think our guidance, your mom and my guidance, have been pretty solid. So we'll just keep to this. And the other part of it was, the negotiation factor.
Right.
I'm not going to negotiate with a kid.
Mm.
I know what's right. That's why I'm an adult.
Hmm.
So I just had this, and maybe some parents listening right now may think that I'm overly paranoid about social media. But then, of course, there's just the stark numbers. And the stark numbers are in my other book, Your Kids Rebound from Pandemic Lockdowns. An average teen spends 8 hours and 49 minutes a day on their phone.
Hmm.
On their phone, not that doesn't include laptop or iPads, and that doesn't include schoolwork.
Right. Which is
So
increasingly online. Yeah.
young boys between the ages of 10 and 18 spend an average of 2 hours and 12 minutes every day gaming. A typical kid receives between 170 and 190 alerts. That is those jarring notes that something's up, which sends, of course, the endorphins going nuts
Right.
a day.
Mm-hmm.
The Washington Post, you just mentioned, on Saturday, editorialized that phones should be banned from schools.
Oh, I agree with that.
Yeah. But the idea is, does any reasonable parent listening right now think that 9 hours a day on a phone is healthy for a kid? Please raise your hand. I'm willing to, entertain this one. So that's what I mean about the destructiveness of social media. And of course, the idea is, number one, it's a passive endeavor. Everything is fed to you. There's no thinking that is really needed to be generated. Number two, it's passive in the sense that kids are sitting there and they're not doing anything else. And which is one reason 22% of kids under the age of 18 are overweight or obese. And that number grows. And the third thing is, it means it takes away from any kind of communication skills that you're going to derive from being with other kids and adults and speaking with them. Yeah. So that's my broadside against the whole social media life. And, as I said, I lived through it as a parent. And I think the first thing parents should do, unless they have the courage to take the phone out of the hand and say, it's going to be a brave new world from now on. They've got to start with, let's say, a social media contract. And you get the whole family together and you say, okay, we have a problem here, And of course, I will say parenthetically too, Carol, and again, parents probably don't want to hear this. If your kid's on a phone 9 hours a day, where the heck are you? I know that's not, I'm just, this is me. I'm unfiltered, as you well know. With this social media contract, you sit down and say, okay, how many hours a day?
Right.
You can't bring it out in the car. You can't bring it out when we're at a dining room table. Yes. You can't bring it out after 8 o'clock. And in fact, at 8 o'clock, I'm shutting off the router to the house, so none of you are getting anything, including me. Then you say, well, these are going to be the times maximums for a week or a day. So you work it out and you say, and as the parent, you say, I'm guilty of this too, and I've got to rein in my screen time as well.
Exactly. It's about rules of engagement. Yes. And it's also what you're talking about is something that I discuss in my series, Parenting in the Digital Age. It's about really leveraging technology. Technology does a lot for us.
Yes.
So, but we have to manage how we take it into our lives. And so I talk about that, the fact that it's a toy, it does entertain us.
It's a toy.
We do derive certain entertainment. It's a tool because it's access to information. We can learn, but we can't make it a tyrant. It can't run our lives.
That's another well put phrase. In saying that it's like encourage and empower. That's perfect. Toy, tool, tyrant. Yes.
So yeah, we're definitely on the same page there. We'll be right back after this. Are you a parent looking to unlock your potential in raising confident, capable, and courageous children? Well, look no further. Join us at the upcoming Parent and Purpose Summit Back to School Edition, where parenting experts from around the world will come together to share their wisdom and insights. I'm Carol Maletta, founder of the Parenting 411. This summit is your opportunity to gain essential skills and tools to become the parent you've always aspired to be. Over 5 incredible days, we'll dive deep into topics like positive discipline, effective communication, mental health, self-care, school readiness, and more. An attendee from our last summit told us, "This summit changed my parenting game. I feel more confident and connected with my children than ever before." So secure your seat at the Parent and Purpose Summit today. Visit parentandpurposesummit2023.com. That's parentandpurposesummit2023.com. And click the registration button to join us on this transformative journey. The Parent and Purpose Summit, where intentional parenting begins. And we're back with the Parenting 411. Now, we haven't talked about it a lot, but like the fact that you have military experience, and I wonder, like when you were leading up to becoming a parent, like with your first child, did you already know that, yeah, I learned so much great stuff, this is the way I'm going to parent, or how did that fall into place?
The military kind of has three values, and they're kind of almost lifted them from the themes that are in 4 Lessons for My 3 Sons. Number one is that personal discipline, like I had with Drill Sergeant Harrison, that amazing man in my life. The second thing is the ability to work as a team, that camaraderie, and the ability to work with someone you don't even like, but you have to. And the third thing is that just constant adversity. Every day is new, and every day brings challenges that you think you're never going to get over. But those values are in everything. I mentioned this earlier. They are in the theater production. They're in athletics. They're in any kind of marching band or music ensemble. They're in that robotics club. These values, they're institutional values if the institution is strong enough. And so the military has those, as I said, as do athletics. And they're good and they're traditional. You brought that up at the beginning of our conversation. And I think they're enduring. I know they're enduring. And that's what I wanted my sons to really have as their foundation as kids.
Now, also, I think we've talked about, or you've some people can easily feel that, your children ultimately grew up to be successful and all of that. So it's easy. Maybe they find it self-righteous of you to be like, so what I did, it works, and it's the way to do it. How do you balance how you share your family successes with being relatable to some parents who really have very different struggles?
And I couldn't agree with you more, Carol. And you put it, so I like the word, their struggles, and their parents have struggles. We had struggles, and I write about them in the book, losing jobs, and then being kind of, in this work environment that wasn't exactly exciting. You need to go farther than dad. So, I mean, we've had no one, like I said earlier, no one gets a free ride, and a lot of the obstacles we faced are right in that book, and I hit them head on. I will say, when I talk to parents, I don't even say a word about what my kids do or where they've been. I say they're good kids, they're pretty solid. And I said, the biggest thing you want out of your kids is you want them to be confident, you want them to be upbeat, and you want them to be satisfied. My kids are never going to be in the men's society. And they're never going to be working the trader desk at Goldman Sachs. They're not going to be surgeons. Okay. I know this already. I knew it when they were 5 years old. But every kid, and I'm old school on this, every kid can do one thing good.
Yes.
I don't care who the kid is. They can do one thing good. And then it's the responsibility of that parent to find out what it is. And then to make that kid blossom from that one thing to other things, so that they can end up confident, upbeat, and satisfied.
Now, I would love to hear, like, now that they're on this side, on the other side of, dad's hands-on day-to-day kind of parenting, what do you hear from your sons when they reflect on how they grew up with you?
That's a great question. And I'm glad you tipped me off that was going to be a question, because I'd never thought about it until I read it. I will tell you this, and it was perfectly framed in the perspective of seeing them all together for the first time in 5 years.
That's what made me think of it. Yes.
On Thanksgiving. I guess I'll put it this way. My youngest kid had the joy, the wonder of growing up with 2 older brothers who were very tough on him. And not only physically, just mentally. And that's just the way it is in the family dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
two older brothers who love their younger brother, their little brother, but
Mm-hmm.
are tough. He grew up to be, has grown up to be just a kind of a stoic and a very tough guy.
Mm-hmm.
He went to West Point,
Mm-hmm.
and his freshman year, he tried out. He couldn't walk on the football team because they didn't take walk-ons. He tried out for the rugby team.
Mm.
And I'm sharing the story because it says all about your question. And as he never played the game, he was lucky to make the team over like 63 other kids. He
Mm.
made the team. And 4 years later, having never played rugby ever in his life, he was a first team All American in the NC2A.
Wow.
Yeah. 15 guys chosen out of all the hundreds and hundreds of rugby teams. He was on it. West Point also won the national championship.
Mm.
And he won most valuable player of the championship series. So in 4 years, this guy had gone from not even playing the sport to the top of his game, and he was actually drafted by the pro rugby team here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of is a testament to the follow through, the personal discipline, just kind of the steadfastness. At graduation, after graduation, we were all staying around with his teammates. And for the national championship, each West Point guy had got a championship ring, which is a big gaudy thing and covered with, stones and all that.
Right.
He took it off and he handed it to me. And this is the ring right here.
Oh, okay.
He
Wow.
handed it to me and I say, "What's this all about there, bud?" And he said, "This is for you spending 17 years standing on those sidelines watching me play."
Wow.
And of course, I'm in tears. I'm
Of
just,
course.
but that seemed to sum it all up. That, like you say, in your at the very beginning of your literature, always be there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Always have that loyalty to the kid.
Mm-hmm.
Always have that candor with the kid. I'm
Mm-hmm.
there 17 years of standing on those sidelines. And sometimes when I was yelling from those sidelines, it wasn't good. Nor was it good after the game when I said, "You know what? You need to work on these two things because
Mm-hmm.
you're not showing it to me." So
Mm.
that loyalty, that personal discipline, just that idea that the father or the parent, was totally engaged in the kid's life and learning, another one of your themes. So when you say, do they comment on the parenting and how they were raised? I think that's about as good as I'm going to be able to describe it,
Sure.
because the youngest kid, you know, was quite well aware of the kind of, parenting he had over all those years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I still get, chills thinking about it when he handed me that ring.
Yeah.
I've obviously got it. That, my gosh, I wasn't invisible on those sidelines. He saw it all those years. So it was nice.
Right, right. And as a child myself who didn't regularly articulate, "Thank you, mom," or "Thank you, dad,
Right.
for doing this or that," boy, it really hit me, it all hit me probably when I moved out of the city and got my first apartment at 22 after college, that it all kind of came together for me.
Yes.
Because prior to that, I just accepted and took in, of course, they're my
Yeah.
parents, they're supposed to do this. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And you make a
It
good
all came
point.
together that I really appreciated it so much, everything.
Yeah. And you just make a great point too. You said 22, move out. I'm in the city. I'm on my own.
Mm.
No emerging adult for Carol. This is the set piece, syndrome and the setting that we're going to do. And then suddenly, when you're at that point, 22, like my kid was, please give me this, the appreciation factor. Oh my gosh,
Yes.
what they have done for me.
Right.
That's,
And it's
that
only,
shows a
yeah.
fundamental kind of presence of yourself right there.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, and that's what you want. I mean, it's like going back to what we talked about earlier about wanting your kids to like you and be
Yeah.
a friend early on. Like now, I mean, when I was at 22 and beyond, that's when I could see, wow, that was really those were really wonderful things she did for me, or my father, my stepfather.
Right.
Now I can have a different relationship with them, and see them. They're still my parents. I still have lots of wisdom to gain from them, but
Right.
they really treated me like a good friend. you know,
Yes.
but that was wonderful what they did to prepare me to navigate in this new city and this new job, all of the things that I walked into when I left home. So
Yeah.
that's really, really what you want. And I always say, listen, on average, you have 20 plus years um, experience on your child. So if you and your young child agree on everything,
Yeah.
somebody's not acting their age, and it's you, mom and dad. It's you.
Again,
Supposed to
you put it
see everything
eloquently.
the same way.
Right. You put it so eloquently. Right. You got 20 years on your kid. If you're agreeing with him or her all the time, wrong answer. You know?
Right. Right.
Gosh.
So, tell us how we can follow you on social media, your website, or anything
Sure.
like that.
Sure. The book is Four Lessons from My Three Sons: How You Can Raise Resilient Kids. It's the second edition. So, and it's on Amazon, the second
Mm-hmm.
edition.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my Facebook account is Jeff Nelligan Books.
Okay.
My Instagram is Nelligan_books. And of course, my website, which contains um, all of my wonderful, soothing, serene op-eds, not on my parenting style, is at www.nelliganbooks.com.
Oh, okay. That's wonderful. Do you have any closing points that you'd like to make? Some things that you'd love to make sure everybody understands?
Certainly. We started this by talking about traditional values, and I gave you four that were of immense importance to me:
Mm-hmm.
personal conduct, building confidence, resilience in adversity, and inspiring ambition.
Mm-hmm.
And those have stood the test of time for 10,000 years. And Carol, bringing this introduction in, said, these in juxtaposition to the modern age, traditional values are always going to be the foundation. They're going to be the rock, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And the sooner parents realize that and really start to embark on building those in their kids, as I kind of exemplify in my book and give examples of how to do that,
Mm-hmm.
the stronger that kid's going to be over the long term in the real world.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I can attest that Four Lessons from My Three Sons was indeed a very good read, and just really plain language, and definitely gives you some actionable ideas right there. And I definitely plan to take a look at the other book where you talked more about the pandemic, lessons from that parents can apply, because that was, just like my anthology where I had parents come on and write about parenting in the pandemic. It's not just the pandemic. It's all about just conquering a crisis that comes into your life. The pandemic
Yes.
and the shutdown, that was a crisis in our life. And there's certainly things that can be learned from that to apply to future situations, because they're gonna come. We just got to keep.
Exactly.
So.
Right. You're exactly right about that, because the idea is, like we've said, no one gets a free ride. Yeah, the crisis, unless you had a plan, you may have been doomed. And so the idea that you're saying is, yes, there's going to be something else. And maybe it's just individualized to your family, or maybe it's your neighborhood or community, but it's going to come. It's just a matter of what time it does.
Yes, yes. So thank you so much again for joining me today. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I knew that we would absolutely take up the full the full
Well,
hour.
thank you. Gosh.
I said probably could have talked about a whole lot more. I appreciate that. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. I always appreciate it. I know you've got millions of podcasts to choose from, but you spent your time with us today. So I appreciate it. Continue to follow the Parenting 411 on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And by all means, catch this episode in video on YouTube on our channel, the Parenting 411, of course. And always remember that it's never too late to be the parent you want to be. Thanks again.